There, okay. Just hit this.
Name's Jason Butz. I'll be the interviewer. I'm interviewing Roger Butz on his experiences in a one-room rural schoolhouse. The date is April 16th, and we'll be starting the interview right now. All right. My first question is, what was the name and the location of the school you attended?
The first school that I went to, since I attended two one-room schoolhouses, the first one was Lincoln, and it was located at Ridgway, Iowa, or outside of Ridgway, Iowa.
What were the years that you went to that one?
I went there from 1946 until 1950. In March of 1950, my folks moved to a different farm, and in rural Iowa, moving day was March 1st, so naturally I transferred to a new school. That one was called Orleans.
And where was that?
That was outside of Ridgway, between Ridgway and Cresco.
All right, and what was the years that you attended that one?
I attended that from March until school was out in June, when I passed my 8th grade test, and then went to Ridgway High School.
So you went to after you got done with the one-room school.
I went to the Orleans one from March until school was out in June, and that's where I took my test. You had to take a test to pass into 8th grade.
Okay, and then you went to a public school, like a bigger...
Ridgway High School, yes.
Okay. All right, and as far as the locations of each one of these schools, about how far away were you from each one of them?
Well, I always told the kids that it was about 5 miles, but I think I actually measured it last time I was up there.
Yeah.
And it was about 1.5 miles.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was the first one. That was Lincoln?
The first one was Lincoln, yes.
And what was I forgot the name of the second one.
Orleans.
Orleans. How far did you live away from Orleans?
About the same.
Really?
But that wasn't walking. The other one I walked to. This one my dad took me because it was on the highway.
Okay, so you were able to drive there.
Well, he took me. I wasn't able to drive legally then, but I probably drove then.
Okay, so as far as so in the winter time, you were able to. In the second one, you were able to get a ride there.
Sometimes I went by a team of horses back of a sled.
Did you really?
And my dad took me. Or if the roads were plowed, since they were all gravel roads in those days, by Model A Ford.
Really?
Yes, and sometimes doubling up on the back of a Shetland pony that my cousin had that lived about 1.5 miles or 1 mile away.
Really?
Across the field, yeah.
And that's what you did in the wintertime,
and sometimes in the summer I would ride with him on the horse.
Okay. About what time approximately did you have to get up for school, and what kind of chores did you have to do?
The older boys were responsible for heating the school. You had to get there early enough.
Well, like before school, did you have chores?
You mean chores at home?
Yeah, did you have to get up early?
Yeah, we had cows that we had to milk and things like that, but luckily in the 4th grade, I didn't have to participate too heavy in that.
Yeah.
So, your dad did.
But he did. Okay, and you mentioned when you actually got to school, first thing in the morning, you had responsibilities.
The older boys had to heat the schoolroom, and they had a big open gravity furnace, which meant in the center of the schoolroom floor, which was all wood, they had a big grate, about a 4x4 open grate above the furnace. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but
I might have. I can't.
Those type of furnaces were either coal-fed, wood-fed, or whatever. And they had a big door right on the front, and you opened that up and put the fuel, either the coal or the wood. You had to use kindling to get it started before the rest of the kids got there.
Oh, really? So, and that was, you had to do that. That was really, okay. So that was kind of a mandatory thing. It wasn't kind of like a punishment detail.
No, it was just
like
something
that
you accepted as being there and wanting to stay warm yourself.
Yeah. Now, in both, was that the same situation in both schools, or
No,
or
it was just at the Lincoln
at
School.
Lincoln?
The other
What-
one,
What did you have to do in
the
Orleans?
teacher, I think, took care of the other one.
Really?
Yeah.
As far as the layout of the schools, were they roughly the same, or
They were
on the
exactly
inside?
the same.
Were they?
Yes, they were all a big open room, and there was like a little stairway coming up a couple steps when you came into the school. And turned left, you were in
Yeah.
the school room, and basically the desks were lined up. They had them clustered by grades.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, I think there were 3 kids in my grade
Okay.
in the school. One was my cousin,
Okay.
Bob Reinhardt, and the other was a neighbor girl.
All right. And that, well, that leads me to another question. How do they go about teaching? Because obviously there was kids of different ages and different educational backgrounds. How do they go about doing that?
With the texts, you have text for your grade. When you graduated, you got the text for,
Yeah.
for the next grade, and the teacher would assign assignments to all the grades, and I'm sure she had to work a little closer with first graders and some of
Really?
the smaller kids, but she basically divided the time.
So it was just one teacher?
One
And-
teacher.
Really?
No
I bet you she was
aides.
busy. Man.
Yeah. We had the old wood top desks with the inkwell and
Really? Did you guys use the ink wells and
cast
stuff?
iron sides on them that were scrolled. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you use the ink wells or
No,
did
we
you
didn't
just
use ink
use
wells, no.
just pencils and pads of paper and stuff?
But I'm sure they had been used years before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
I kind of forgot where I was. So approximately how many kids were there in each school? As
Well,
far as the
I'm
the
thinking
total
that there
number?
were about 15.
15 in each?
Yeah. Something like that.
And that covered grades 1 through 8? you said?
Everything up through 8th grade.
Up through 8th grade?
Mm-hmm.
Could you describe what kind of describe to me kind of a school day, like the kind of the subjects, what kind of what did you do for lunch, things like
Okay,
that, recess time.
Usually after we got the fire started, the first thing my cousin and I would have to do would be to walk a half a mile to the nearest farmhouse with the bucket to get water from the farmer's deep well.
Okay.
And we would bring that back with the dipper and put it in the washroom.
Okay.
And that was the drinking water and dipping water if you had to wash in the basin as well. And you know, you had your reading, writing, and arithmetic is basically what it got
Right.
down to.
About how long would the teacher spend on with each one of the grades as far as teaching the lessons?
Depended on you know, the time of day. As I remember, she would get everybody set up to study,
Yeah.
and then if she had like tests or anything, she would assign those, and if they had questions,
Okay.
I'd ask her. She had a desk right up in the middle, and all desks were
Okay.
around it.
Okay.
I don't ever remember discipline being a problem
No.
in those schools. No, I was never disciplined. I don't remember anyone ever being disciplined.
Really? You weren't kind of you never. No.
Hey, we didn't have TV to watch or anything.
Yeah, you didn't. So there was no smacking of knuckles or anything
No.
like that with that. No.
No.
And
Miss Hovey was a nice teacher.
was she?
Yeah. Usually there were single girls that just got out of school. They
Yeah.
may have gone 2 years to Teachers College in
Yeah.
Cedar Falls.
Okay.
And
Alright.
generally they got married by the time, you know, they had taught for 2 or 3 years.
What did you guys have recess?
We had recess, we played ball, you know, tag,
Yeah.
things like that. There was a fenced schoolyard with a boys' outhouse and a girls' outhouse.
Yeah.
And, you know, that basically in the wintertime we would go outside for a little bit, but otherwise you basically just stayed in.
You just stayed in as much as
Yeah.
you possibly could.
Yep.
And that pretty much was that the same in both the schools you went
Yeah,
to?
the routine was the same. Sure.
Okay, I suppose the same school district and all that.
Pretty close.
What were your favorite subjects?
Well, I like math,
Yeah,
and I like reading. Especially, I did a lot of reading.
yeah.
And writing wasn't my big thing, so
that,
I just never could master doing the circles between the line.
yeah, I still print, so I can.
Yeah, I think that's an inherited thing. Your dad was not a good writer.
My dad wasn't a very good writer
He wrote
either.
like I did, yes.
So overall, did you get pretty good grades then?
Yes,
Did
I
you?
was a good student, you bet. I like school.
And you say that you didn't really get into any trouble or anything like that.
Well,
I mean,
no,
did you?
I didn't get disciplined, but I did have some trouble. It's something that I have never forgot. My cousin and I were lighting the furnace one day,
Yeah.
and we had put the paper in the kindling, and we had ash in there, but it wasn't drawing. So, some reason I looked up on the rafter by the window in the school, and there was a can, and it said cleaning fluid. Well, I knew on the farm if we put gas on or something, it went really good.
Yeah.
So I got that down, and I opened it up and opened the furnace door, and I took that and squirted it in, and it blew back and burned all the hair off my face.
Wow.
Now in those days, there was no hospital to go to. The hospital was 15 miles away, and they didn't have burn centers, so I went home to your great-grandmother, my grandmother, and she had Ungentine.
What's
I don't know
that?
if you've ever heard of that.
No.
That's a burn ointment yet today that you can buy in the drugstore. She
Really?
covered my face with that, and I was off school for a week or so.
Really?
That's why my eyelashes grow at a different angle than they did originally. I didn't have scars,
Yeah.
but it was a memorable experience.
Well, it sounds like it was. So, but aside, I mean, you didn't. I mean, you healed up okay, and obviously
no scars,
you
sure,
healed up
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Was there any damage to
Didn't hurt the
anything
furnace a bit, no.
or anything around? You
No,
didn't light the school
no,
on fire.
it didn't
or
burn
anything?
anything. It was just a basement floor.
It was just you that
We
got
used
the damage.
the furnace. We carried our lunch naturally in a paper bag, and usually it was like a sandwich or some type of fruit or whatever. But I would take a potato, and after we lit the furnace, it had a ledge around inside.
Yeah.
Anybody that wanted the baked potatoes would set their potato in there
Really?
and mark it. And then by the time you ate lunch, it was baked perfectly. They were crisp, as good a
Okay.
baked potato.
Well,
That's the
sounds,
closest thing to hot lunch that we had.
well, that sounds pretty good. Nice dry heat
Yeah,
inside
it
there.
was really great.
As far as what time, when did the day end? At what? How long
Usually
did
it was,
you go?
the school usually started at 8 and
Yeah.
ended about 4.
Ended about 4.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit longer than the regular than
Yeah,
the
it
school
might have been
days now.
3:30 for the younger kids, but
Yeah. Oh, so the younger kids got out
a little bit.
a little
yeah.
bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If you did get into trouble, what would happen to you? I mean, what were some of the disciplinary measures that?
I don't ever remember.
Did they have detention, or did they make
No,
you sit in a
I don't
corner?
ever remember anyone staying after school or
Really?
anything like that. No,
Wow. That,
I mean the kids were pretty well behaved.
wow. Be nice to be able to say that nowadays.
Yes.
Would have been nice to say it when I was in school.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it personally.
Sure.
Well, we already talked about what the school was like in the winter, and how you got to and from school, and what was
If the blizzard wasn't too bad, we made it to school.
Really?
If it was too bad, the roads were impassable.
yeah.
So if my dad took us in the sled, that would be the only way that I would have
Yeah.
got to school.
okay.
They didn't have rotary blowers
Yeah.
or plows. There was one in the entire county
Really.
at that time. They had just invented the rotary plows.
With the augers
It
on.
was a
them.
monstrous thing, one big auger
Yeah.
with a blower.
Um, were the schools that you went to, were they used for anything else besides
No,
just school?
just
They
school.
weren't used as like a meeting community
No.
places or anything. Did you vote
No.
there at all? Or
No.
people go there and vote? Okay, do you know if the buildings are still?
No, they
There?
aren't. They're both gone.
They're both gone.
There's a cement block there that
Just as the foundation was?
yes, looks like part of the foundation, yeah. I'm not sure if somebody bought it and converted it to a little house or something
Yeah.
afterwards. That's usually what happened to them.
Yeah,
Sometimes they'd move them off the site.
yeah. A lot of farmers use the old ones for sheds
Yeah,
and things like
right.
that, you know. Do you have any really, funny stories that you can recall that happened to you or any of your classmates?
Well, I don't know how funny it is.
or
since
anything out of the ordinary or
I'm not a PETA member. I guess I can tell it. My cousin had the Shetland pony that we used to ride on.
Yeah.
And if we needed to get to school faster, he had a rope, kind of a sisal rope that was kind of rough, and I would set backwards on the horse, and he had the rope under the horse's tail, and when he wanted to go faster, he'd have me saw it a little bit, and the horse would really run.
Man, kind of an early nitrous oxide system for a horse.
Yeah, I don't know how I never fell off. But
About how long was the school year?
the school year was about the same as it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that, as far as education goes, compared to nowadays, do you think it was a better setup as far as more hands-on learning or more teachers paid more attention to you?
No, I
do you
think it went back more to the Abe Lincoln type
Yeah.
learning, where it was up to the individual to read,
Yeah.
comprehend, and do, that
So it was more of an
learning
individual
part yourself. Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, as far as comparison to the courses and the subjects and everything available today,
It's,
I mean, no comparison for today's curriculum and everything.
it was quite a bit different. But the subject, reading, writing, and
That's
and
basic.
arithmetic
That's the stuff that everybody says the kids miss out on today.
Yeah, and well, they've got too much other stuff going on. Computer classes
Yep.
and
Sure.
and what else, And you say the schoolyard was
It was fenced in. Yeah. It
Uh,
was probably about, maybe 150 feet by 150 square.
and that was about the same with both
Just a
buildings.
grassy.
Okay. Do you guys have? Did they provide any playground equipment for you guys, like dodgeballs
No.
or anything like
No.
that? No.
Uh-uh.
Could you bring your own?
No one had anything like that in those days.
Okay.
In '46, the war was just over a year or so.
Well, was there any, as far as rules go in the classroom, were they really? You said everybody was good, pretty good, and
Yeah.
did the teachers have any really strict rules
Yeah.
set up that guidelines that
No
you
whispering,
had to follow?
no cheating, no,
You
none
know,
of that
kind of
stuff,
kind of the basic stuff.
Yeah.
No passing notes.
Let's see. About how long was your lunchtime?
It was about an hour.
About an hour. You got about an hour,
Yeah.
and you just pretty much ate at your desk.
Yes, sure. In the summertime, you could go out if you wanted to.
Could you go home if you want?
No,
No.
no. Once you were there, you were there.
As far as the teachers go, did they live around the school or did they live in town? or-
Normally, they drove
They drove.
out to it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well.
In the summertime, I basically walked every morning and every night.
Okay.
You know, that's why it seemed like 5 miles to me, but we lived right on the banks of the Turkey River when I went to the Lincoln School, and it was kind of a scenic walk going back home along the river and everything, except one time there was an older bachelor that lived up the road from us. He was kind of an eccentric guy. He still had a Model T.
Okay.
And he took his 12-gauge shotgun and sat down against the corner post of a gate that I walked by every day
Really?
and put the shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger.
Really?
Yeah.
And you see?
No, I didn't see it. But it
Okay.
bothered me every night when it started getting dusk and I was walking by there
Well,
thinking about
I'm sure.
that spot.
And you were a young kid.
Yeah.
And wow, and that happened when
That was during
During-
the school
during
year,
your-
yeah.
during
I
your
just,
school
you know,
year?
it's something that you never forgot.
no, did you witness any? I mean, did you see the?
Oh, I'm sure
It's
that
just that
you
you knew
know,
that it was. You just knew it
I'm
happened.
sure we had to
there.
go over and look and see if there was blood or something on the post or whatever, but
This is did your school have a library?
No.
Or, no, didn't you? Ridgeway have a library?
yes,
Really? And then
the
is
high
that
school
all you?
did.
Okay. All right.
The back of the assembly hall was the library.
Was
They
it?
had racks of books.
As far as your 8th grade exams go,
Mhm.
now were they? How did you prepare for them?
I had complications because I injured my left eye in a freak accident years ago. To entertain people, we would take a button and put a string through it in a loop,
Yeah.
and then you would take and spin it like this and then pull, and it would go real fast. Well, I was showing my sister how to do that, and I said, here, I'll soup one up for you. So I used a button and a heavier string, and I got it going so fast. In those days, the buttons were pearl, real pearl.
Yeah.
It disintegrated, and it beat the reflexes of the eye shut and cut my eye. I lost my vision
Oh, okay.
in the eye, and that was just when I was going into the 8th grade. So I spent like a month in the hospital in New Hampton. I mean, they didn't have the in and out treatments in those
Right.
days.
Right.
And many trips back and forth to save the eye, which we were lucky they had an ophthalmologist at New Hampton.
Yeah.
And it happened to be right at the time, so the teacher worked really hard with me to get caught up since I had missed that much school,
Yeah.
especially going into the test. So I was happy I passed.
So you're pretty happy about that. Did you have like a graduation ceremony or something like
No,
that?
they just gave you a diploma.
Did you?
Yeah,
Or
grade,
that's all
grade
they.
graduation.
they
yeah,
just handed
at
it
the
to you?
school, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have any kind of a thing outside.
No, there was
or-
no ceremony or anything in those days. I probably got to go home and help milk the cows afterwards. That was
Well, yeah, speaking of that, what kind of chores did you have to do after school on a typical school day?
well, every night and morning was milking 40-some cows.
Yeah.
And you had to feed them, clean the barn,
Yeah.
all manually, nothing mechanical.
And plus, you had to do your homework.
Slop the
didn't
hogs, yeah,
you? Okay.
pretty typical farm stuff.
So, what would be like like as far as homework? What would be like a typical night's homework? What would they?
Depended on what they had. I mean, if you only had one book, it was easy to take it home and,
Yeah.
and read whatever was assigned.
Okay. What was your favorite part of the day?
Favorite part of the day? Probably recess.
Really? Well, probably. It was,
Either
I
that
know
or-
it was mine.
Either that or my baked potato.
Or, I think that's so cool. A baked potato. You guys have. I suppose you had butter and everything too. To
Well,
go
did you
on
ever
with it.
hear in the early days like that, they used to put them on the manifold of a car?
Yeah, I
If
think
if
I
you drove
remember
a truck
Dad
or
saying
something like
something.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I remember him saying
Sure.
something about that. remember saying that he used to put, this is off the subject. of
Limburger
course,
cheese.
Limburger cheese.
Yes, I was going to tell you that story.
You know, in conclusion, what lessons from country school do you think we might be able to benefit from today? I mean, as far as the advantages and the disadvantages.
Well, I mean,
And
certainly you weren't around any problems or anything in a school like that. You know,
Yeah.
there was no one trying to push drugs or anything like that.
right,
And, you know, I think, like I say, the basics of a good education was reading, writing, and arithmetic.
yeah, exactly.
And that's what they stressed, you know, very strongly in that type of school.
And that's, you know, that's what you got. It was,
Mhm.
you know, and it seems to me that it was, like you said, really based upon the performance of the individual, wasn't it? I mean, if you want to succeed,
Yep.
you were taught that you had to work to succeed. Whereas today, you know, do you think kids kind of have a kind of a sense of entitlement to certain things?
I'm sure that happens in some cases.
And then we kind of already went over for this one. Do you think a one-room schoolhouse setting could work today in certain contexts?
I would say with the subjects and things that we have to offer today, it probably wouldn't work.
You don't think it would?
No, not when you look at the size of some of the classes the teachers have.
Yeah. But do you think that the education?
I mean, the concept, you know, would be good,
Right.
but the way the curriculum and everything has changed, why?
Yeah, it would probably. I mean, the concept of it is good. But you know, do you think even in some certain contexts, I mean, do you think it would work, or do you think it would be more of a hindrance to the?
Well, I think life has changed so much with
Right.
the advent of TV and
Right.
all of the things the kids are exposed to today that
Right.
I suppose it'd be more like, you know, like a private school where you have
Yeah, that's
smaller classes or
right.
something like that. I'm sure that's good. Especially probably for the morals of the kids and discipline and things like that.
and that's. It seems to me that that's, you know, really kind of a big benefit that you got out of that, you know, as far as the morals and the what's the word I'm looking for here, the benefit of a more structured way of living.
It really wasn't much of a transition to go to the country school outside of getting there and all the
Right.
things that we had to do, because I attended public school in Ridgeway the first 3 years.
Yeah.
Going on the 4th year when we moved to the farm that March. So then, you know,
So-
we had one teacher
Right.
in a room, but it was all the age group. So
Okay.
the setting was about the same.
Well, all right. Well, that is all the questions I have for you, and I just want to say I appreciate it. Thank you very
You
much.
bet.
Uh, you can hit the button.